This video is about a fairly common little structure for your tables that is quite flexible. So the situation that I'm going to envisage here is I've got this table of members in my game dev club, and I've got a situation where I want them to be able to go to different events. So I'm going to create a table called TBL events, and let's give this an event ID and an event name and an event date. So probably easiest if I just put some data in just to see what this looks like. So this is the game dev conference, which is conference, which is going to be on this tomorrow, yeah, and maybe we'll have another event as well, which will be open day. We want to see how many people can turn up for open day. That's in a couple of weeks' time, and maybe there will be a staff social where a bunch of students will turn up to demonstrate some things that they've been doing, and that can be next month sometime. So I've got 3 events and I want to put students into those events. So the question is, how do I put students into the events? And a temptation that I see very often is that people say, let's add like a students column or something like that here. Or they say, for the members, let's add an events column. That will never work. Well, it worked very, very briefly, but it means, for instance, that if I have a student column, then I can add 1 student, but I might need multiple students. And in this table, if I add an events column, then I can allocate a student to 1 event, but they might need to be in multiple events. Very typical kind of problem, and the standard solution is to have another table, which is kind of a link table in between them. So if I call this one table student allocations. I'm not sure that's the best name. I'm going with it. And I'll give this one, call it allocation ID. And all I'm going to put in here is student ID and event ID. And these are going to refer to the actual student. Now, well, of course, when I refer to a student, I'm going to be referring to, if I refer to a student, there's only one unique identifier for every student, which is the ID column. In the same way, for each event, there's only one unique identifier for each event, and that's the event ID column. So to match up, I need to make sure these are numbers. So I'll be able to type in the student number. Same for the event ID. So let's have a look at how that works. So if I say, who we got? Hubert Wigzell. He's number 18. So he is going to go, student 18 is going to go to the Game Developers Conference, which I happen to know is number 1. And he's also going to be there for the staff social, which was number 3. So I've straight away managed to allocate 1 student into 2 separate events. But I've got other students that want to go to the Game Developers Conference, Bianca Olek and Neely Vance. So Bianca Olek is 29, Neely Vance is 33. So in the allocations, 29 is going to go to event number 1 as well, and 33 is going to go to event number 1. So I've now got a consistent way of saying I can have as many students as I want, as many events as I want, and any student can go to multiple events. Oh, I should have said that, shouldn't I? Yeah, I've done that. I did that with this student. Who was he? Hubert. Has gone to both of those 2 events there. So having done that, I really should set up my relationships, so database tools relationships, and I've got my notes in my tutor groups just like we had before. I'm going to add in my allocations and events table. I might need to do a little bit of shuffling around here. Just going to put these down here, I think. This is going to go to here. And what I can then link up is the members, goes to the student ID. I'm slightly inconsistent with my naming here. Good. And the event ID goes to event ID here. So I've now got a correct structure. Close and save that. And I can do queries. So I can say create a in query design. I can say please give me from members, allocations and events. I can say give me the names of the students and the events that they're going to, and let's have a quick look at that. Yeah, so I can see that Hubert Wixell is going to 2 different things, and the Game Developers Conference, I've got 3 people in total going to that, so that's great information. My experience is as well that it's a good idea to have the IDs in there, even if you're not using them. You might use this as part of as a sub-query to a more complex query, and then you will definitely want the IDs to uniquely identify the student and the event. You can see how confusing it is if I just left everything at ID, because you can end up with like 3 or 4 different IDs in a query, and you're like, which one? And that can be problematic, which is why I'd often go with event ID, and I probably should have called that one member ID another time. So that's the basics of setting up a sort of intermediate table, and leave you with that just to remind you this is the typical kind of structure if you're going to link something like an event to something like a member.